Hi everybody, Matt Unruh here with Gary Thomas, head football coach for the DC3 Conks, and coach at the moment in third place after falling to Butler last week in a tough game. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about Fort Scott, as we missed you last week, but got the W in a tough battle.
Yeah, they were a good football team. We knew that going in, and told everybody that would listen how good they were. Their three losses at the time that they lost the games were to all three top five teams, and then they lost a shootout with Highland where they both scored in the high 40s. So, they were capable, and we didn't play our best game, but they're really good on defense and struggled a little bit on offense finding their identity, but they were in the game from the start. So,
how much of that do you think contributes to your defense being able to shut them down a little bit?
Our defense played well, and I mean the 14 points that we gave up though were sloppy on our part. We made a bunch of mistakes on two drives. Other than that, we played really well throughout the game. The score and the flow of the game was not kind of indicative of how well our defense really played because of the time that the points were scored. It kind of felt different as the flow of the game was moving on, but overall, top to bottom, they played really well, forced a couple turnovers down and deep in their own territory. One of them we capitalized on and one we didn't. So had we played a little better on offense, the score probably would have been a little more lopsided, but the way it kind of played out and the way our defense kind of had those two letdowns at the kind of the wrong time, the game seemed closer than it kind of really was.
Individually on defense, Antoine Turnage, with 9 total tackles, 2 sacks, a fumble recovery. I think he got, Defensive Player of the Week?
He was Conference Player of the Week, yeah.
So excellent game for Turnage. Mark Thompson rushing for under 100 yards, but Justin McGinnis picking him up, 128 yards receiving off of 6 catches. Not a ton of passing yards last week, 216, but enough to get the job done offensively. Yeah,
again, just the way the flow of the game went, there was times when it dictated us running the football. They were causing, there are 4 down guys on defense. 3 of them are committed. 2 are committed to SEC schools, and 1's committed to TCU. So they're 3 of the 4 better defensive linemen there in the conference are all on that same front. They struggle a little bit on the back end, their linebackers and their secondary, but they don't have to cover for as long because they do get pretty good pressure on the quarterback, or at least they did for us. And they mix up the fronts that they're giving you. So our guys struggled a little bit picking up what they were doing, and the problem is when you're confused and when you're late reacting to something against better athletes like that. Obviously they were getting more penetration, they were getting hits on the quarterback, so because our defense was playing well, got pretty conservative on offense just to make sure we didn't do anything that would cost us the game and kind of wait for an opportunity to win the game, which is kind of how it played out.
Well, with that victory, it's set up for an even bigger game versus Butler, a chance to control your own destiny for the conference, and a tough game and a really tough start, it looks like, for the Conks, going down 24-0 in the first half.
Yeah, we didn't play well. There's nothing about any of that's sitting in front of you that was pretty. So it's, we completely melted down in a couple aspects of the game. We had 2 special teams breakdowns. We gave our defense 2 short fields, and that was the game. You're not going to catch them after that. And statistically, we were pretty much even in every category. Of the 24 points they scored early, it all came on less than 100 yards of total offense. They had 2 30-yard drives and like a 27-yard drive, and that was the game right there. And then they had a kick block for a touchdown. So it wasn't that they physically beat us up and dominated us and blew us out. It was we gave them so many free points early that you're just not going to catch a football team like that in that situation.
Now, being ranked number 3 in the nation at the time, from what you saw in person, I know there's a difference between seeing them on film and in person. Are they as good as advertised?
Well, they're actually number 1 in 2 other polls. They're number 3 in the NJCAA poll, but I can't say because I haven't seen Coffeyville play in person yet, and they're number 1. Number 2 is Snow out of Utah. I've never seen them play. I'd say based on their scores, I thought Butler's at least ahead of Snow, and we'll figure out who's 1 and 2 this week when those 2 guys get to play. But I mean, they're a top 5 team. There's no doubt. But I also thought if we defend a Hail Mary with 4 seconds left against Iowa Western and we don't give up 24 points in the first 9 minutes to them, you could argue that we're a top 5 team program too, but it is what it is.
Matt Unruh with Gary Thomas, head football coach for the DC3 Conks. And, after a rough game and a game where I feel like your Conks didn't play their best, got to motivate you to hopefully get a second chance at them in playoffs.
Well, we don't have the playoff system anymore, so that was our shot.
Never mind.
We're done with Butler till next year, so we don't get any second life. That's why the games are so important in football. It's not like any other sport. You prepare year round for one opportunity, and when you play like we played for the first 12 minutes of that game, you got to sit here for a year to be able to let your frustration go. The good part about losses, it kind of helps get your attention again, and when you start getting sloppy and gives you an opportunity to kind of reassess where you're at and get back to some fundamental stuff, which is what we'll do this week. And we've got some winnable games here down the stretch over this last month, and we need to win them. So,
well, Coach, you're back at home next Saturday, a noon kickoff with an Iowa Central team coming to town, and a team that record might not indicate how good they really are, correct?
Yeah, they've struggled in some games, but they kind of got things figured out a little bit last week. Actually, they were down 12-0 with 12 minutes to go in the game, and they scored 2 touchdowns and beat them 13-12. And Highland, on paper should have beat them in that game. So their defense, when you watch them on film, they're sound. They're in the right places. They're coached well. Offensively, they're trying to be something that they're probably not, but they have some decent athletes. They're running the veer, and they kind of just throw it up. They have a receiver that's pretty good, a big guy that they just throw it up to and hope for the best. They've got a little tailback that's shifty and pretty explosive. He's not going to grind yards, but if you're out of your gap, he's going to pop one and he can go the distance. So they're not super dynamic, but they have the ability to score points if you let them. And they're actually, like I said, they're really sound on defense. And that I think will be our biggest challenge, is stopping their 2 playmakers and also being able to manufacture points on offense consistently.
Yeah, points on offense has to be crucial this week after scoring 17 against Fort Scott, defense managing to hold them down enough to get the win, and only scoring 14 against Butler. How important is it for your guys to get off to a good start against Iowa Central this week?
Obviously it's cliche and you always want to get off to a good start, but it's not going to be the outcome of the game if we don't get off to a good start. We've proven that we can come from behind and catch people. It's not what you want to do and it's not what you plan for, but we're not scared to get behind, but it would be nice to get up and be able to have control of the football game early and often, but it doesn't always play out like that.
And Coach, last question for you. 7 games into the season, about 2/3 of the way through. 5-2 on the year, 1 loss in conference. Mm-hmm. Is this where you expected this team to be from the beginning?
Pretty close, yeah. It's unrealistic to think you're going to win all the games. I don't think at any level of football everybody wins all the games. There's never been a Super Bowl champion except for the Dolphins that have ever gone undefeated in the NFL. Yeah. There's Ohio State last year won the national championship and they had 1 loss. It's just so hard to do in this day and age to run the table. It's just tough to get motivated. It's tough to keep people when you've got a target on your back from tripping you up along the way, and that's a little bit of what we run into. But to be 5-2, going into this last month, we feel like we're better than Iowa Central. We feel like we should beat Sterling's JV. We feel like we should beat Highland. And, 3 of the last 4 is important, and it allows you to gear up for, if we can get these next 2, gear up for the Coffeyville game, which is one you got to get up for. If Butler was to beat them, Butler probably wins conference championship at that point. But if Coffeyville beats them, then we have a chance to get back in the conference championship race. So again, I told the guys yesterday, we've not that you ever want to root for anybody else in your conference, but we need Coffeyville to win this game to give us a chance. We'd all get a 3-way split for the conference championship, which would be pretty cool. So it's all we can control at this point in time. But again, Coffeyville's 3 weeks away. We're not worried about that one. We've got to beat Iowa Central before we start worrying about anybody else. So, but our season's not over. Realistically, we should be an 8-win team with a chance to win the 9th. If we can be healthy and get our heads on straight for that week. And it doesn't mean that we're just going to walk over the other three. But our 22 versus their 22, we're better than Iowa Central, and we're better than Highland, and we're better than Sterling JV. So all of those things aside, we've got to go out and prove it. But they haven't been 8-3 here since, or they haven't had an 8-win season here since 1983, which is 32 years ago, and with a chance to win the 9th one. I don't know that they've ever won 9 games. I'd have to dig pretty far in the history books to figure that out. But for us to be an 8-win team is pretty remarkable. So now we've got 3 wins. We got 3 games to go out and do that. But that's a realistic goal, and it's something that we need to shoot for. And if we get the 9th one, then the 9th one potentially is the conference championship. So
Conks with a chance for a historic season, 5-2 on the season, 4-1 in conference, and host Iowa Central this Saturday, October 17th, noon kickoff. So be sure you set your alarms for Saturday and wake up on time for that one. Any tailgate or anything sponsored barbecue on Saturday that you know of?
Not that I know of. I know a lot of the parents tailgate for all the home games, so I imagine they probably will. But I don't think there's going to be a big one this weekend. They are doing a breast cancer awareness event this weekend of some sort. So that'll kind of be the theme for this one. But, other than that, just noon kickoff so they can drive their 11 hours and get back to campus at a reasonable time. And they did it for us last year, so we kicked off at noon when we were up at their place. So it's just kind of an agreement that we have, and, gives the guys a chance to kind of get their heads right before they got to go to class on Monday, instead of if we kicked off at 5:30, they probably wouldn't get home till about noon the next day. So it's
trying to be considerate.
It's a rough trip. It's those 10 hours on the bus. There's not a lot of redeeming qualities about it. So that's why we do the noon kickoff.
So noon at Memorial Stadium. Conks taking on Iowa Central this Saturday, and we have good weather for mid of October at this point from what we're looking at in the forecast. So come on out and support the Conks. If you can't make it, 1550 AM The Sports Hound, conksports.com for the play-by-play. Also for video live stream, Team 1 Sports, team1sports.com/DC3. For Gary Thomas, I'm Matt Unruh. Hopefully see you Saturday, and thanks for watching.